What's up guys? Today I want to show you how to use ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. These are the fundamental rules every shot you see on TV and in movies are based off of. But before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit more about myself. My name is Justin Jones. I've been a cinematographer in the film industry for about 10 years. I've shot everyone from Hobson to G-Eazy to Zane to Jaden Smith and so many more. Make sure you follow me and check out my work on Instagram at JustinJonesDP and hit that subscribe button below to 640 Studios. All right, let's get started. Number one, ISO. ISO is the camera sensor's sensitivity to light. But where did that come from? Back in the day, they had film cameras, but they didn't have a digital sensor. So the only way to set your ISO would be to choose the film you wanted. For example, this box is 400. So when you put this in the camera, that would be your ISO. Nowadays, on DSLRs, we have a digital sensor. This digital sensor will allow you to change the ISO on the spot. Every camera has a base ISO. For example, the camera that we're shooting on right now, the A7III, the base ISO is 800. Another example would be Canon. Canon DSLR's base ISO is 100. Just depends on the manufacturer. The base ISO is where you're going to start, and you want to try and keep your images as close to this as possible. Obviously, ISO is a tool, so you can vary from this base ISO. Depending on if you need more light, you can raise your ISO, but be careful because that will introduce more grain. If you bring it down a little bit, that's okay, but you're going to lower your dynamic range. Number two, shutter speed. We have become accustomed to the 180 degree rule. This means the most pleasant motion blur happens when your shutter speed is double your frame rate. For example, if you're shooting 24 frames per second, you would want your shutter speed to be 1/48 of a second or 180 degrees. If you shoot lower than 180 degrees, your motion blur is going to be jittery and sharp. But remember, shutter speed is a tool, so you can use this to tell your story. In action sequences and music videos, you can use this to raise the intensity of your scene. And if you raise your shutter speed to above 180 degrees, that's going to introduce more motion blur. Say the scene calls for a drugged out effect or somebody's really drunk. If you raise that shutter speed, you can really blur the motion like in this example. All right, number three, aperture. Each lens has a set of aperture blades. These blades open and close to allow more or less light into the lens, thus hitting the sensor. For example, here's this lens. The aperture blades open to allow more light and close to allow less light. So the higher the aperture, the number on your lens, the less light will be allowed to hit the sensor. This also does another thing. It will allow you to have more stuff in focus. From close to far, it will spread that distance out so you can have multiple things in focus. On the other hand, the lower the aperture number, the more light it's going to allow into the camera. This will also bring your depth of field much shallower. So if you just want to have one person in focus and allow everything else in the background to be out of focus, this is really handy in telling a story where you want your character to be separated from everybody else. But be careful, this is going to allow a lot more light into your lens, and if you're shooting outdoors, you're going to need ND filters. Remember guys, if you like this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button and follow 640 Studios on Instagram at 640 Studio and Justin Jones DP. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.